Ladies, pour yourselves a cup of morning coffee, get comfortable. Today we're going to have a very honest, perhaps even slightly uncomfortable conversation. This is Amanda Brown, and I want to talk about fear. About that quiet, sticky fear that I know settles in the hearts of many of us when we cross a certain age threshold. The fear of old age. I remember the day it first truly knocked on my door perfectly. I was 68 years old, and I went for a routine checkup with a new young doctor. My old doctor, with whom I had been side by side for almost 30 years, had retired. This new doctor was polite, but his eyes were cold and quick, like a man looking at a clock, not a patient. I started telling him about the nagging pain in my knee, about how I was getting tired more quickly. He nodded, not looking up from his tablet, and then he looked up at me and said a phrase that hit me like a punch to the gut. Well, Amanda, at your age, that's normal. At your age, that phrase sounded like a verdict. There was no sympathy in it, only a statement of fact. You are old. What more do you expect? I walked out of his office feeling not just like a patient, but like an exhibit. A fragile, written-off object from which nothing more was expected. That day, for the first time, I was truly afraid. I wasn't afraid of wrinkles or gray hair. I was afraid of becoming invisible. I was afraid that one day my body would betray me, that I would become a burden to my children, that my world would shrink to the size of a rocking chair by the window. That evening, I sat in my living room in our Vermont home, looking at the photographs on the mantelpiece. Here I am young, laughing, with small children in my arms. Here my husband and I are on a trip to Italy, and I felt tears welling up in my eyes. It felt like my story was coming to an end, that the best chapters had already been written. I remembered how society constantly whispers to us that after a certain age, women should step into the shadows, make way for the young, stop dreaming and wanting. And I realized that all this time I had subconsciously believed this lie. But then, through that wave of self-pity, something else awoke in me, something defiant. I remembered my grandmother, who learned to use a computer at 80 to email her grandchildren. I remembered my aunt, who at 75 went on a solo trip to Alaska. They didn't see their age as a verdict. They saw it as a privilege. And that night, I realized that the fear of old age is not a fact. It's a choice. It's a story we tell ourselves. And I decided that I would no longer tell myself a scary story. I decided to change the script. Over the last few years, I have developed 5 mental attitudes for myself, 5 truths that have helped me not just to stop being afraid of old age, but to love it. Today, I want to share them with you, and I promise the last one is the most important. It is the very key that can open the door to your happiest and freest years. If you are ready to change your perspective on life, stay with me. The first mindset. My story isn't over, it's just evolving. One of the most insidious traps of aging is the thought that your main role in life has already been played. The children are grown, the career is over, the house is built. It seems that all that's left is to play out the finale, sitting on the sidelines. This thought poisons joy and steals purpose. We believe the lie they sell us, that retirement is a finish line, not a starting line for something new. I saw what happened to my friend Eleanor from Texas. She was a brilliant school principal. Her whole life, she was at the center of things, managing a staff of hundreds of teachers, solving complex problems, inspiring thousands of students. Her life was filled with meaning, responsibility, and respect. And then she retired. The first 6 months were like an extended vacation. She slept in, watched TV shows, visited friends, and then the emptiness hit her. Amanda, I don't know who I am anymore, she told me over the phone, and there was real pain in her voice. I feel useless. My story is over. She began to fade before my eyes. One day, I flew to see her in Austin. I found her in a house that had become not a sanctuary for her, but a mausoleum of the past. She spent her days sifting through old things, photographs, school awards, thank you letters from parents. She was living in memories because she was afraid to look into a future that seemed empty to her. Her house was filled with things that reminded her of who she used to be, not who she could become. I took her hand and said, "Eleanor, honey, your story isn't over. Only one chapter is over. You spent 40 years giving yourself to others, but what did you always want for yourself? What did you dream of when you were young but never had time for?" She looked at me in surprise, as if the question had never occurred to her. After a long pause, she whispered, "I always wanted to learn Spanish and go to Mexico to see the Mayan pyramids." For a moment, a spark ignited in her eyes. "So what's stopping you?" I asked. "Well, I'm too old for that," she replied, repeating the very phrase that steals our best years. "Nonsense," I said. "You're not too old. You've just never had the chance." That same day, we found a Spanish class for her at the local community center. At first, she felt awkward. She was the oldest in the group, surrounded by college students and young professionals. She felt foolish when she mixed up words or spoke with a strong accent. Several times she wanted to quit, but her hunger for knowledge was stronger than her shyness. A year later, she wasn't just speaking broken Spanish, she was laughing in it. And then she bought a ticket to Cancun, alone. Her children were horrified. "Mom, are you crazy? Alone in Mexico?" But Eleanor was adamant. When she returned, she was a different woman. She brought back not only souvenirs, but a new version of herself. Tanned, radiant, full of stories about the people she met, the food she tried, the sunrise over the ancient ruins. She told me, "Amanda, I realized that my retirement wasn't an end, but a liberation from the roles I played my whole life. The role of daughter, wife, mother, principal. Now I can just be Eleanor." Ladies, understand this. Old age is not an epilogue. It's a new, perhaps the most interesting chapter of your story. You are no longer obligated to play the roles that were imposed on you. You can finally become the main character. Yes, this chapter will be different, maybe slower, more thoughtful, but it can be filled with new meaning, new hobbies, new friends. Stop looking at your age as a limitation. Look at it as a liberation. A liberation from have to and a transition to want to. Want to paint? Go for it. Want to volunteer at an animal shelter? Do it. Your story isn't over. It's just waiting for you to pick up the pen and start writing the next page. The second mindset. My body is my friend, not my enemy. The fear of physical decline is probably the strongest. We fear pain, weakness, dependence. We look at new wrinkles, feel our joints ache in the morning, and begin to see our body as a traitor that is slowly letting us down. This mental war with our own body is exhausting and accelerates aging. We start to believe the lie that illness and weakness are an inevitable part of aging that we just have to accept. I went through this myself. After that doctor's visit, I started listening to every creak in my knees, to every forgotten little thing, blaming it all on old age. I began to get angry at my body for not being able to do what it could at 40. I looked in the mirror and saw an enemy covered in wrinkles and age spots. This struggle made me miserable. And then I decided to change my tactics. Instead of fighting with my body, I decided to befriend it. I realized it wasn't an enemy. It is my oldest and most faithful friend, which has served me faithfully for 7 decades. And now it's not betraying me. It's just asking for a different kind of treatment, a more gentle, more attentive one. I started by listening to it, not ignoring the whispers in the form of slight fatigue after lunch, but allowing myself a 20-minute nap. not forcing myself to go for a long walk if my knee hurt, but doing gentle stretching or going to the pool. I stopped feeding it junk, simple carbs and sugar that caused inflammation and brain fog. Remember how they told us that a breakfast of orange juice and toast with jam was healthy? That's a lie. Such a breakfast is a sugar bomb that causes a sharp spike in energy followed by an equally sharp crash, leaving you exhausted by noon. Instead, I began to nourish it. I started cooking simple but healthy meals, baked salmon with spinach, vegetable soups, salads with olive oil. I discovered that when I give my body what it really needs, protein, healthy fats, fiber, it responds with gratitude. The aches lessen, the energy increases, and the mind becomes clearer. And I started moving again, but not out of a sense of duty, but out of love for myself. I found what brought me joy, not pain. For me, it turned out to be Tai Chi classes in the local park and swimming in the pool. The smooth movements of Tai Chi improved my balance, and the water took the strain off my joints. I stopped thinking of movement as a workout and started seeing it as a play. Stop seeing the changes in your body as a defeat. Yes, it's not what it was at 20, and thank goodness, it's wiser. It carries the map of your life. Instead of being angry at the Rinzels, thank them for every laugh that created them. Instead of cursing your aching knees, thank them for the thousands of miles they have carried you. Your body is not a machine that breaks down. It's a living organism that adapts. And if you start working with it as a team, you'll be surprised at what it's still capable of. It wants to serve you until your last day. Help it do that. Speak to it with tenderness. Feed it with care. Move it with joy. And it will remain your faithful friend until the very end. Ladies, we've gone through the first two mindsets. We've talked about the importance of not considering your story finished and how to befriend your own body. These are fundamental things that change the very way you look at aging. Perhaps some of this has already resonated with your soul. But we still have 3 steps ahead of us, which concern equally important aspects: our energy, our perception of ourselves, and our place in this world. It's about how to stop being a resource for others and become an anchor for yourself. So take another sip of your wonderful coffee, straighten your shoulders, and let's continue our journey to freedom from fear. The third mindset. I am the curator of my energy, not a public resource. Remember how in our youth we gave our energy away left and right. We agreed to every request, took on other people's problems, tried to please everyone. We wore our busyness like a badge of honor, proving to ourselves and others that we were worth something. But after 60, this habit becomes destructive. It leads to burnout, illness, and quiet desperation. The fear of old age is often linked to the fear of becoming a burden, of being useless. And to prove our worth, we continue to say yes to everything, depleting our last resources. My friend Susan from Ohio was a classic rescuer. For adult children would call her with any problem, from a broken car to a fight with their spouse, and she would immediately rush to help. Her friends knew they could count on Susan anytime, day or night. She baked pies for the church bake sale, babysat her grandchildren at a moment's notice, and chaired 3 volunteer committees. Everyone needed her, and she was absolutely exhausted. One day she called me in tears. "Amanda, I can't do it anymore," she sobbed. "I woke up this morning and realized I don't even have the strength to get out of bed, but I have 12 things on my schedule, and everyone is waiting for me." I told her, "Susan, honey, imagine your energy is a bank account, and right now it's empty. You can't keep writing checks that you don't have the funds to cover. You've gone bankrupt." This metaphor struck her. I suggested she become the curator of her energy. A curator in a museum doesn't display all the paintings at once. They carefully select the most valuable ones, creating a harmonious exhibition. We should do the same with our time and strength. I advised her to do a simple thing. Learn to say no, politely but firmly. I would love to, but unfortunately, I won't be able to this time. At first, it was incredibly difficult for her. She felt guilty, selfish. Her children were offended. Mom, but we were counting on you. Her friends were surprised. But she held her ground. She kept telling herself, I am the curator of my energy, and today, that energy is for me. And a miracle happened. She started spending the freed up time on herself. She resumed something she had loved in her youth, playing the piano. She started taking long walks alone. She began reading books again, not just to-do lists. A couple of months later, she called me again, but her voice was different, calm and strong. You know, she said, I realized that by saying no to others, I finally said yes to myself. And it turns out the world didn't fall apart. My kids learned to manage on their own, and I feel alive again. Ladies, your energy after 60 is a non-renewable resource. Stop handing it out like free samples at Costco. Become a strict curator. Before every task, ask yourself, will this fill me up or drain me? Cut out toxic people who only complain and give nothing in return. Delegate responsibilities. And most importantly, leave white space in your schedule. Time for doing nothing. Time to just sit, breathe, and be. Protecting your energy is not selfishness. It is the highest act of self-respect, and it's one of the main keys to happy aging. The fourth mindset. My reflection is a map, not a list of flaws. The mirror. How much pain it has brought us, especially as we age. We peer into our reflection and see an enemy. We see wrinkles, age spots, a sagging jawline, gray hair, and we start to fight this reflection, spending thousands of dollars on creams, procedures, and tricks that promise to give us back our youth. This battle is lost before it begins, and it steals our joy and self-confidence. I was in that trap too. There was a period when I desperately tried to look younger. I bought youthful clothes that looked ridiculous on me. I tried bright makeup that only emphasized my wrinkles. I dyed my hair a dark color that made my face look tired. I looked in the mirror and saw not myself, but a list of flaws that needed to be fixed. The turning point came when my little granddaughter, Lucy, was sitting on my lap and thoughtfully tracing the wrinkles around my eyes with her finger. Grandma, she said, you have sunbeams on your face. Sunbeams. I almost burst into tears at that moment. My whole life I had called them crow's feet and hated them, and this little child saw beauty in them. And I realized that the problem wasn't with my face, but with my eyes, with the way I looked at it. I decided to make peace with the woman in the mirror. I adopted a new mindset. My reflection is not a list of flaws. It's a map of my life. Every wrinkle is a trace of a smile or tears that made me wiser. Every age spot is a memory of a sunny day spent in the garden. My gray hair is not a sign of old age. It's my crown, which I have earned. I stopped fighting my age and started styling it. I gave up chasing trends and found my own timeless style. I discovered that a perfectly tailored blazer instantly makes me look put together and elegant. I realized that my color isn't black, which ages me, but a deep sapphire blue that makes my eyes sparkle. I threw out uncomfortable shoes and kept only those I could walk in with pleasure. I stopped hiding my gray hair, getting a stylish short haircut that became my signature. Ladies, beauty at our age is not about smooth skin. It's about the radiance of confidence. When you accept your reflection, when you stop criticizing it and start being proud of it, your whole energy changes. You start to stand up straighter. You start to smile more often, and people feel it. They don't see your wrinkles. They see your light. Your face is a unique, beautiful map of your long and rich life. Don't try to erase it. Study it, love it, and wear it with pride. Because there is nothing more beautiful than a woman who is at peace with herself. The fifth mindset, I am my own anchor. And finally, the most important mindset, which became a life raft for me. The fear of old age is very often linked to the fear of loneliness and dependence. We are afraid that we will be left alone, that no one will need us, that we will have no one to lean on when things get tough. When my husband passed away a few years ago, I felt this fear to its fullest extent. The house became empty. The phone rang less often. My adult children, whom I love dearly, were busy with their own families, their careers, their lives that I myself had taught them to build. I would sit in silence in the evenings and feel panic wash over me. What if I get sick? Who will help me? What if I fall? I felt like a small boat in a vast ocean without an anchor. I could have fallen into despair. I could have started calling my children, demanding attention, turning into the very burden I was so afraid of becoming. But instead, I remembered the words my wise aunt once told me. Amanda, in the end, you are all you've got. Be good company for yourself. And I began to cultivate the most important relationship in my life, the relationship with myself. I adopted a new mindset. I am my own anchor. I stopped waiting for someone else to come and make me happy or save me from loneliness. I realized that the source of stability and peace is within me. I learned to enjoy my own company. I started doing things I had always put off. I got a dog, a little terrier named Winston, who became my faithful companion. I started writing, just for myself, in a journal. By pouring my thoughts, fears, and joys onto paper, I realized that I don't always need a listener. Sometimes it's enough just to be heard by myself. I transformed my home from a place of waiting into a place of living. I started cooking beautiful dinners for myself, setting the table, lighting candles. I would play music and dance in the living room. I started traveling alone, short trips to neighboring states, to small towns with cozy ends. It was scary at first, but then I felt an incredible sense of freedom. I realized that being alone and being lonely are different things. Loneliness is the feeling that you are missing someone. Solitude is the feeling that you are enough for yourself. When you become your own anchor, the fear disappears. You know that you can cope. You know that you can find joy within yourself. You are no longer dependent on external circumstances or other people for your happiness. This doesn't mean you should push people away. On the contrary, when you stop needing them, your relationships become purer and healthier. You interact with your children and friends not out of fear of being alone, but out of a sincere desire to share your already full life with them. Ladies, stop looking for an anchor in someone else, in a husband, in children, in friends. They can be wonderful ships sailing alongside you, but your anchor is you, your strength, your wisdom, your ability to find joy in simple things. Strengthen this connection with yourself, and no storm will be able to sink you. There they are, my dears, the 5 truths that changed my life. To stop being afraid of old age doesn't mean ignoring the changes. It means changing your attitude towards them. It means understanding that your story continues, that your body is your ally, that your energy is priceless, that your reflection is beautiful, and that you yourself are your most reliable stronghold. These are not just words. They are tools that will help you build a bridge over the abyss of fear and cross to the other side, to a life full of dignity, peace, and joy. Old age is not a sunset. It's an opportunity to finally shed everything superfluous, other people's expectations, unnecessary things, empty anxieties, and to be alone with your true self, wise, strong, free. It's a privilege that life doesn't grant to everyone. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it with gratitude and live your golden years so that they truly shine. If this video resonated with you, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and share it with a friend who might need to hear this. This was Amanda Brown. Take care of yourselves and cherish each other. You deserve it. See you soon.